everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. It's episode number 105. I'm your host, Phil Huber, joined by Logan and John, and that's no background on Logan. He's actually in the tropics. On today's episode, we will discuss the coming of spring, outdoor woodworking, and some new things that are coming along here at Woodsmith and Popular Woodworking. Hope you enjoy today's show. This episode is brought to you by Shaper Tools, makers of the Shaper Origin, the handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. Tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with speed and precision. You can try it in your shop for 30 days, risk-free. Visit shapertools.com to learn more. All right. So, in spite of the weather in Iowa at this very moment, which is icy and gross, one thing that I've been doing this last week here was getting some of my outdoor projects ready for another season, which I think is something that we talk about when we build a project, but then never really follow through on.
Until they look like crap. Once they look like crap, you're like, yeah, maybe I should do something about that.
Yeah. So I had built it was a year and a half ago, we did a staved planter, a low, that's probably about 10 inches, 12 inches tall tops, planter out of cypress. And it's a pretty sweet project. And the one in the magazine had a copper band that went all the way around it. I wasn't a huge fan of that look for whatever reason, but I made my own, gave it to my wife for Mother's Day, I think. And we used it. It did get a crack in it from expanding in Iowa humidity. So this past fall, I twisted some copper wire around it as bands and then put that over the top of it. But because it lived outside and just took a little bit of a beating, I decided to get a jump on spring here and sanded the outside and put a couple of new coats of finish on it. So once the weather does warm up, I don't have to worry about trying to do that then. And there's a few other outdoor things, planter stands and chairs that just seems like that's a good idea to start thinking about now rather than later.
Yeah. So did the copper band make more sense after you saw your planter explode?
Yes. And that was actually the funny part, because when I first had the planter out there, it was kind of shaded by the overhang of our roof. So part of it stayed in the shade and part of it got sunshine, and the part that got sunshine just expanded and split. Wasn't even on a joint line. It was just off one of the joints and cracked open. But
yeah, it's funny because before I packed up and left for this week, we had a warm day or two, and most of the snow melted that we had. And one of the items that is on my deck is the patio table we built on the Woodsmith shop show.
Oh, yeah.
Benches. And I built the top out of my Rocos. And I noticed as I was packing, I looked out there, I'm like, oh, hey, nice. Maybe I'll come home and, everything will be nice and clear and I can refinish those. Because I'll tell you what, after having a foot of snow on it for about 6 months, well, it hasn't been that long, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, it's starting to look a little gray and weathered, and it also needs a little bit of loving, which, again, is one of those things that I don't usually like. I usually just wait till it looks really bad to do it, but
yeah.
I really am enjoying being outside here, so it's like I can't wait to sit on the deck at home. So first thing first is going to knock that top out.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things, like, especially after an Iowa winter where you get a few warm days and you want to just start putting stuff out on the patio and you realize, oh, I should probably put new finish on this, but I don't really want to waste the first nice day putting finish on it, and then you can't really use the stuff. And then you end up just using it, thinking, I'll just get to it later. But you have pots in the stands and all whatever, and you're not going to do it. So
yeah, we had a few 50 to 60 degree days this past weekend and kind of got that bug to do outdoor things, but it's like, you're not going to trick me, Iowa weather. I know this is fall spring.
Yeah. It's like how the hobbits have, first breakfast, second breakfast, noonsies. We have first spring, second spring, third spring, the thaw. We have all those.
Girls basketball tournament.
Yep. So, no, actually, one of the other things I was kind of looking at the deck as a whole, thinking, oh God, I can't wait to get outside. I have that grill cart that I want to get, more than anything, I want to get out of the photo studio because it just annoys me that it's sitting in there still, taking up a bunch of room. But I'm so not looking forward to moving that onto my deck. Like, I think I built it to fit through the door, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right.
If it doesn't, I have a tractor and pallet fork, so I can kind of lift it up about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way, and then hopefully tip it over the deck. We'll see.
Sure.
That'll be. We'll do a outtakes video when I do that.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Yeah. That's why the old barns had like the big pulleys right in the peak, so you could lift stuff up and around.
That's right.
So what did you do on the warm days, John?
Oh, I kind of just went out and surveyed what future projects I need to do. We moved into the house back in November, so kind of got everything moved in and bundled up and didn't really get much outdoor time. So it's kind of just seeing what we need to do here when it warms up. Probably more landscaping than woodworking, but there are a few, woodworking related, landscape projects that probably do, but
I think it's about time for a new Woodsmith trellis, right?
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, my wife has always wanted a porch swing, and it looks like on our front porch there's hooks for like a hanging swing, but I've realized it gets so windy out there that I think the swing would just blow into the house and through a window, or so. I don't know what we'll do there, but
how about a glider rocker?
Yeah. So we'll see. But
yeah, it was nice enough that I spent a few hours Saturday or Sunday and Monday in my workshop, since that was the first time, I don't know, probably since November when I got COVID, just because it's been so cold that even with the little quartz heater that I have in there, it just doesn't do much. So it was nice to get it all cleaned up and worked on a few projects, and I loved it.
Yep.
Made me remember how much I like that little shop.
Yep.
So speaking of woodworking, Logan, how is Mexico?
Mexico it's interesting. Puerto Vallarta, Mexico is definitely not the same Puerto Vallarta, Mexico I left 25 years ago. It's been 25 years since I've been here. We used to come down all the time with my grandparents.
Really?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like every year we would come down here. And I haven't been down here for 20, 25 years. It is 100% different. Completely different than when we left it. In both good ways and bad. You kind of lose it's definitely more touristy. But it's really cool driving around, seeing how, like from the taxi from the airport to where we're staying, we passed 3 different woodworking shops that have all their stuff sitting outside. You can kind of see the shop inside. It's like, oh, hey, that's a 1970s Delta 14-inch bandsaw. Or, oh, hey, look, that's an old PM2000. It's like, it's kind of funny. It's kind of cool just seeing the different, as a wood nerd, I love seeing the different wood species down here because I mean it's completely different what we have, right? Like, no, I can't.
Sure.
I could not even begin to tell you what any of these species are. And when we went horseback riding the other day, and we're up in the forest, and I'm asking the guy, hey, what are these trees? And he can tell me the Spanish name. I have no idea what they translate to, And the only tree that I know for a fact that they grow here, it grows at the higher altitudes, is Zericote.
Okay.
And it's like a big pine tree. And you could buy it so cheaply here. But it's like, technically you can't import it. I was going to try to see if I could find somebody that would lock me off a bulb length or something. But technically you can't do that. So instead, you have to have somebody lop you off a bulb length and then spray it with lacquer. Then it's considered a finished art piece, and then you can bring it back.
All right.
But I don't know if I want to go through that hassle.
Yeah.
But it is kind of cool, and it's kind of cool to see how furniture styles transcend, cultures. Like there are a lot of river and live edge tables down here, a lot of them, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the more modern type aesthetic that a lot of these resorts and hotels and restaurants and stuff are trying to go to or what, but there's a lot of live edge river type stuff down here. That was one of I noticed it because one of the furniture shops, La Carpinteria, that we went by, had their furniture out, but they also had these huge live edge slabs just stacked up against the wall, like ratchet strapped to their pillars outside. I was like, oh, hey, I could, spot slab from eight lanes of traffic away. So it's just kind of interesting. So beautiful weather though, man. Can't beat it. It's like 80 degrees for the high, 65 in the morning. It's wonderful. So am I ready to get back to Iowa? Yes and no. But yes, because I have a lot of stuff that I have to do for the next issue of Pavlin, but no, because it's Mexico, man. It's relaxed. I've drank too many pina coladas. I'm getting soft.
And go fishing.
And fishing, yes. Fishing's good here. Except, I'm a little wuss. I get so seasick. I took so much Dramamine, and I was still I was miserable. I was blast, but I was still miserable. So, 6-foot seas in a little 24-foot boat. Ooh, a lot of up and down. So
yeah. So you're gonna be able to bring some of your fish back?
Yeah, I got a bunch of mahi frozen in the freezer. The guys we were fishing with, that's how they feed their family. So we caught 8 of them, and I was like, just give us 4. You guys take 4. Technically, I think as Mexican citizens, they can take 10 fish per person, but with us having sports fishing license, I think you can take 10 fish, but certain fish count for multiple fish. So I think technically you can only take 2 mahi. So I was like, just let us take our 2 each. We'll freeze them so they're in the freezer here. I'll pack mule them back and throw them in the overhead bin.
So do you have to butcher them down there or fillet them down there?
Yeah,
or
they filleted them on the boat on our way back to the harbor. So yeah, they're filleted. They have skin on one side, so you can tell what they are. But yeah, so beautiful fish, man. They're like crazy how different colors those mahi are, and they're one of my favorite fish to catch ever. And you catch one, and it is like lime yellow or lime green, just that really fluorescent color. And then the next one you pull up is like electric blue and silver, like almost chrome. So pretty cool. This is the first time ever that I have been on a school of mahi and we're stopped, because usually you troll for them. So usually you're kind of motorboating away, trolling a bunch of lures. But we found a buoy 30 miles out in the middle of the ocean, just one buoy. And this buoy was literally like 6 laundry soap containers tied together is what the buoy was. And there were thousands of mahi around it. So we stopped, and they're swimming under the boat. You hook a little mahi, you leave it in the water next to you, and it keeps all the other ones around. It was a blast. It was super cool. So This episode of the
Here's
Anglo Journal podcast brought to you by Logan's Rant.
Here's a little pro tip. I heard it's like the best way to get that fish fresh across the border is to pack baggies of flour in between them. So
Really?
Yeah, I'd do that and
yes.
And try to get
through
customs.
I bet you that won't look suspicious at all.
Or powdered sugar, or
yes.
you know.
Let
me know how that goes.
Columbia, John.
Wow. So in other news this week, I've been on a little kick of finishing projects that I have kicking around, or I've had kicking around. So I did a few years ago on the TV show and in the magazine, Chris did a canister project with a threaded lid. And then he had a cool router jig for cutting the threads for the inside of the canister and then the outside of the lid portion. And we had one of those props laying around here. I have one for people who are watching on our YouTube channel. And I'll put photos of it on the show notes page. And I never knew what to do with it, and I just hated to throw it away. This is kind of my standard refrain. So what I did is took my block plane and I tapered the outside edge of it. So it's got kind of a faceted taper to it, which I think turned out pretty cool. And then painted it with General Finishes acrylic milk paint in basil, which I believe is now my new favorite color. Mm-hmm. Everything is going to be basil that I'm going to be painting in the near future. And then had my daughter do some drawings on some masking tape. This one's of a coffee pot, and then on the other side is a sunrise. And then she put the masking tape on the canister, and then I was able to carve through it and do an incised carving on it. And tried to take my time and be really careful and sharpen my carving knife way beyond what I thought I could do. And I think it turned out pretty cool. And then did kind of a scallop detail on the bottom. And then did a glued up walnut lid. Mm-hmm. Quarter sawn so that it looks pretty nice. And then yesterday while I was out in my shop, had a turning blank of, it said elm, but it was really very easy to cut. So I don't think it was really elm. And did as a little knob on the top of it, which I thought turned out pretty cool. And the finish on the walnut, because I really like walnut when it has that real deep chocolatey brown look to it. And I didn't really want to stain this because I'd like to keep coffee in it, whether grounds or whole beans or something like that. So I have a nice snug fit on the lid. Rather than using a stain and having that kind of stink it up, I had, Brie wax or brie wax in Tudor brown and put that on there. And it was, it's super cool. It's got just a nice feel to it. Great color. Really accentuates the chocolate or the walnut color in there. So.
And you didn't thread the lid on that? It's just
I did not. No, I routed a rabbet around the outside.
Okay.
Or on the inside. And then the rabbeting bit couldn't get deep enough, so then I just ended up chiseling it back with chisels, oddly enough. And then once I got it close, I would test fit it and then used a shoulder plane and then could follow the curve on the shoulder plane and made it essentially round, which I'm frankly a little amazed at how well that worked. So
yeah, I always thought that project would, be good just with a fitted lid like that, because the threading jig is a whole nother project to get into. Yeah. Very cool, but
yeah,
a project in itself. So
I wonder if there's somewhere that sells like a roll of gasket material that you could put on there. You know what I mean? Like almost like a T-molding type gasket material that has a splined edge on it, so where you could route a groove on the inside, push the spline into it.
Yeah, probably.
It'd be nice to be able to have like a rubber seal. That'd be really cool. It'd be a good way to make those
really big O-ring.
or a massive O-ring, something like that.
That's true. Yeah.
But it seemed like it was a pretty tight fit as it is. But
yeah, no, I was really happy with it, how it turned out, and it's like one of those things where I'm trying to get a little bit better at carving, and I don't get to spend a ton of time on it, so it's baby steps for me. And I had visions of, having some word in there or whatever, and that's beyond where I can go right now, so I'll just do what I can. You've probably seen the Shaper Origin, that handheld CNC router. It's designed to help you do joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, adding speed and precision to your shop, and helping you enjoy the craft of woodworking in a whole different way. Shaper has a special offer right now. You can have it in your shop for 30 days. Just check out shapertools.com to learn more. So even though you're in Mexico, any news for Pop Wood?
No. I think last time I talked about how I had cut those, the pilasters for the watchmaker's cabinet. I was super happy with those. Looking forward to getting back on Friday. I'll be back by the time this episode airs. So any of you guys looking to go scavenge my lumberyard, don't think about it. I'll be back Friday. So I have a bunch of dovetails to do, half-line dovetails to do for the drawers. There's 6 drawers, so you got 2 half lines on each side of the drawer front. I might just do one big dovetail in the back, because why mess around with it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then make some molding with some simple hollows and rounds and a rabbet plane.
Cool.
And then that will be a pretty much done project. I'm going to do the old finish I've really liked lately has been just a scorching hot, like smoking hot linseed oil. The linseed oil really soaks in when it's super hot. Like, just put it on a hot plate, let it get super hot, flood it on, and then hit it with some paste wax when I'm done.
Sure.
I may put a coat of tongue oil over top of it, hadn't decided. But I will tell you, one thing that I have really enjoyed lately, and I don't know why I've always had this, I wouldn't say I've had a thing against using secondary woods, but I've always been like, well, if you're going to make the dang thing out of walnut, just make everything out of walnut. But I'm at the point now where it's like, I think there's some really good utilization for secondary woods. And I think at some point here soon I'll do an article on that in Pop Wood, because traditionally there's a bunch of secondary woods that you use because they're cheaper or they wear better, or there's usually a particular reason. So I used a bunch of basswood for the inner web frames and the drawer sides on this cabinet, and I think it's really, really cool. I like having that contrast when you open up the drawer. It works extremely easily. So there's that one. I was going to have an article on forging and adze with my buddy Andy, but he had to skip out on that article. So instead we're going to do a basic hand plane restoration. So kind of this article I showed using a lot of Lee Nielsen and Veritas hand planes and stuff. And there's no reason that somebody has to have a $500 hand plane to get the same results that I do. I mean, you can do it with a $5 Stanley that you got at auction. So we're going to do a good cleanup article to kind of show. I take 2 different paths when I do a restoration. Either do I do a user restoration or a refurbish where it looks brand new.
Yeah.
And that's a little more extravagant, not necessary in most aspects. So, and then looking forward a little bit, I think we have one of my next big projects. Like the watchmaker's cabinet, that's a pretty small one. Doesn't take it takes time, especially when doing it with hand tools and videos or photos and stuff. But one of my next big projects is we're going to revisit a workbench, and I keep telling myself it's going to be a shaker workbench because I really like that aesthetic of the cabinet base.
Right.
But I don't know. want to do like a hybrid, like Scandinavian meets shaker workbench.
All right.
With a big shoulder vise on it and stuff. I don't know. I haven't decided. I'm still kind of chewing on that one, I guess. So.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, going back to your talking about secondary woods on project parts, I've never really thought about that. I've always just kind of designed and built projects, say like using maple for drawers and stuff, just because that's what looks right, because that's what furniture is usually made with, because traditionally that was a cheaper wood or had a reason for using that. But like on a smaller project like yours, where you might just have the walnut laying around because that's what the rest of the project is, just to kind of build the rest of it out that way.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of cool because this basswood I'm using is the one that we cut on video, John, or you helped me.
Yep.
And I kind of cut it for this. I mean, I cut it not for this project. I cut it for this reason, was kind of as a secondary wood. It was one of those things like, well, this limb isn't going to make great dimensional lumber, but for small pieces, it's perfect. And oh my gosh, you can do anything you want with basswood, and it doesn't fight you. It's awesome. So it's pretty great. It does. My biggest issue with it is it gets a little fuzzy. It's always a little fuzzy. It never seems to really smooth out. It just always seems to be a little fuzzy unless you cut it with a sharp blade. Well, I mean, there's other great woods you can use. I mean, you can use elm, you can use basswood, pine, soft maple. Here in Iowa, I'm in Mexico, but in Iowa we have catalpa would make a great secondary wood.
Sure.
And you don't see it very often. I mean, just kind of those things that you don't really want to make an entire project out of necessarily, but they're okay to shove in a closet somewhere.
Yeah. I remember one of the designers here used to use sycamore for drawer boxes. And I believe he also said that there was a time when he used willow.
Interesting. I mean, and it's those type of woods that don't necessarily have any commercial value.
Right.
Or resale value. I mean, the sycamore does if it's cut right, but like, I'm not going to go pick up a sycamore log and say, oh, hey, I'm going to make a couple $1,000 off cutting this. Like, that's just not what I do. Or walnut, that's more a possibility. It's just a great way to use it rather than mulching it or sticking it in the firewood pile.
Yeah.
Or jigs. I mean, that's another great use for some of that type of stuff, is slapping together jigs and stuff.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, this week we have, by the time this airs, we'll have had it done, but we're going to have a special guest on the TV show, Brent Hull from Hull Historic Woodworks down in Fort Worth, Texas. We're going to do an episode on built-in projects. So it'll be kind of fun to have him on. And I think I'm going to have him as a special guest on the podcast. So maybe next week we'll be able to have a sit down with Brent and chat with him about woodworking, especially from a restoration, preservation kind of viewpoint. It's more of the carpentry aspect of woodworking rather than, like we've had this discussion before about like DIY home improvement woodworking. And this is that's definitely not his lane. He's more of a, built up solid wood moldings and capitals and columns and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be kind of fun to talk to him. And he's a kind of a history nerd too. So then we're also consolidating our office space here in Des Moines. We've had a bunch of people working from home and moved some departments around. And so we're in the middle of kind of like moving house. Sometimes walking around here feels a little bit like the end of semester in a dorm room or in a dorm building, because there's just boxes and piles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it was at your guys' school, but it's like by the end of the semester, it's like the dorm room just didn't want the student in there anymore, so just kind of vomited it out into the hallway.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it looks.
Except this would be like the 10-year professor that's never left his office in 50 years. That's more what this is like, because there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we need to like move or consolidate every about 5 years just so we can get rid of some of our stuff and not collect it so much like we have in the past.
Yeah.
But
we'll get there.
Yep.
So probably in the next month, maybe, I think things will start to settle down. By the end of March, I think we'll have most of the construction hammered out. So,
yep.
Yeah. I think we say that every month, though. In about a month, we'll be caught up.
It's always one of those, just wait till the end of this issue, then we'll have time.
Yeah, once this issue is done, or once this episode of the show is done, things will kind of ease up a little bit, and
they don't.
Yeah,
it doesn't. But
it's the delusions we tell ourselves.
Yep.
Like in woodworking, it'll be like once you put finish on it, you'll never see that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if we've talked about it really, but we had made the decision to get rid of basically our building that houses our entire offices. So we have our two buildings right now where one fills in as our studio. It has our photo, video, studio, customer service warehouse. Our shops are in there. And then across the street, we have a 3-story building. And I don't know how many square foot it is, but it has to be close to, probably 30,000 square feet, I would guess.
Yeah, probably.
And our offices have been in there since the dawn of time. And once COVID hit, we all started kind of working from home, and we saw how well working from home worked, and it worked for most people better than coming into the office, especially those people that have a long commute every day. We decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to keep this ball rolling and save that rent money. And have everybody work from home, give people some flexible office space if they'd like to come in the office. We'll set up some cubes that people can come in and work. But definitely, kind of the same story I think that a lot of companies are doing right now. I'm glad that I am not in the commercial real estate market, over the next couple of years. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good once it's all done. But just getting there is a hard thing when you have 40 years of woodworking projects that need to move somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. It does have a cleaning out your grandma's basement kind of feel to it.
Yeah, you find some cool stuff that you forgot about, or you're like, "Oh, this was here. I didn't remember this."
Yeah. Or why did we keep this?
Or I've been looking. Or I've been looking for this for 10 years, and this is where it was.
Or ew.
Yeah. So if you're traveling over the summer and are going through the state of Iowa and you want to stop in and take a tour of the offices, we'll have something new and exciting to show you. It's kind of fun. It's got, we moved our video studio over here a few years ago, and it was a big improvement because we were able to be much closer to our offices and the studio. And I think this is going to be even a little better. It's got kind of like a live work feel where we have our office cubes, and basically just on the other side of where my screen is the video studio. So we can be like in the shop and right here going all the time. So,
well, that was my big question. Like with our offices being in our studio where we film the TV show, but we also do a lot of personal woodworking in there as well. Are we going to do more or less woodworking? Personal woodworking. I'm going to say more.
Probably more. It's kind of fun to be able to do that where it's, you've been typing away at the computer for a while, answering emails or writing an article or something, and then be like, oh, I can quick do this as a screen break and then come back and hit it again. And Although I think it's one thing that's kind of fun is I feel like in the last year or so is we've kind of, and for John, he's been doing this ever since he's been here, is like all projects are personal. So
right here,
yeah,
in my heart,
is being able to be like, hey, I'm really want to make this because I want to try this skill, or I've always wanted to make X or whatever. And we just do it, whether it's for YouTube or the TV show or something like that, that I feel like does make some of the projects more personal.
Yeah. Well, I think that there are a handful of us that are probably closer to most of the projects than others, especially since we're not only working on it in the magazine, we're working on a video, we're working on photos. I mean, it's like,
right.
You kind of, not to sound weird, but you get intimate with the project because it's there all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too with our offices kind of being right there in the video studio workshop area. If it'll be like, hey, I'm going to do this. Why don't you flip on the cameras and we'll just shoot some video while we're all sitting here, and there'll be more of that, or
I don't know.
So
maybe that would be kind of cool to be able to get some of that off the cuff woodworking. I mean, because there's some of the stuff where you do, like when you have people watching you, you do it a little bit more formally or whatever. But there's, I think it becomes a little bit, again, just without trying to overuse it, a little bit more personal because we all have different workflows when we're working on our own compared to when we're trying to shoot something for a TV show episode.
Right.
Yeah. I guess that would be a good question for our people that listen and read and follow us and whatever, is do people like the more formal type presentation? Because definitely the show, video edition, that type of stuff, when we have our studio set up, it's definitely more of a formal presentation type woodworking where, you know, camera Phil, camera Logan, camera John is not the same as in the shop Phil, Logan, or John by any means. Yeah.
Right.
And you definitely can see the difference if you look between like what we do on Woodsmith Shop and you look at what somebody does on YouTube. And I wonder if people have if they favor one way or the other in particular. You know, because I mean, we're, you know, not to sound stuck, we're pretty cool guys, but
three wild and crazy guys
well, I mean,
just
like,
hanging out in the shop.
We're all pretty genuine, but I feel like some of that gets a little lost when you're on camera because it's very like, game face is on, you know, personality goes out the window just a little bit, you know, where it's like, you know, if I'm in the shop, I'm like, the right way to do this would be with the miter gauge at the table saw, but I'm going to freehand it at the bandsaw, and I'm going to accept the consequences later. you know?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, some of that comes from the fact of, like, if we're doing it on camera, there's setup involved in going from being at the bench to the table saw or whatever, whereas when we're in the shop, it's, you know, we can bounce between tools really quickly and easily. Yeah, so that would be interesting to know. Like, is there a time and a place for each one, or does somebody have a preference, and why? Why do you have that preference?
Yeah.
I've kind of seen both comments both ways, I guess. People that are used to YouTube, sometimes they're like, "Hey, we don't want to hear you talk so much. Just get to it and just shut up and do it." And then I hear people like, "Hey, thanks for explaining all of that and not just playing some music in the background, woodworking, and not really giving any
running it at 4 times speed."
Yeah, and maybe that's the distinct difference is the show stuff and the video stuff we do tends to try to be more educational, where there, you know, we want somebody to be able to at least take something away from it. Whereas a lot of the YouTube type stuff or the off the cuff stuff tends to be more entertainment than it does informational. Like, their mission is not necessarily to teach you something or to show you a particular skill. It's just to kind of let you know what they have going on, show what they're doing, and that's pretty much it. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I think you can find balance between all those, or you know, so
cool. All right, one thing that I'm kind of looking forward to that I've had on my radar for really long time, as I've always loved Hans Wegner's Valet chair that he designed. And I know that this is not the world we live in now, but his Valet chair, if you Google it, is designed to hold men's dress clothes, the jacket, slacks, and all the accessories in a chair ready for your day. And I've always admired the look of it, and I thought it would be kind of a fun project to reinterpret, because I feel like, and apparently this is why I've been here this long, is that I've seen some trends of, like wearing sport coats is kind of cool in a relaxed way with jeans or whatever. But even if you have just a layered look, being able to have a place to keep your clothes. And then his chair also had a compartment for kind of your everyday carry stuff of wallet and keys and phone and whatnot. So, and I've wanted to have it in the magazine, and it's sort of been scheduled and then usually gets kicked down the road. But being the executive editor means that I can actually get that done now.
Throwing his weight around.
Right. Yeah. So Dylan, who's on vacation right now, just dropped off over the weekend plans for the people who are looking at the YouTube version here for his interpretation of a Valet chair. So I'm kind of excited to see this taking shape. So if you're watching our Facebook Live shop updates on Thursday afternoons, I think Mark is starting on that this week. So it'll be kind of cool to see where that goes. And I may end up building one along with it, just because I've always wanted to see how it looks. So
I'd like to see like a Valet type chair for a guy that, has a pair of jeans that he might wear every day for a week, and, a sweatshirt that he may or may not, throw back on the next day, or just someplace to throw the clothes that, if I have to get up in the middle of the night and let the dog out, they're right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, every day. It's like, it's not quite dirty yet. I might wear it again. It's not, hasn't made it to the hamper yet. So,
but it's at least I won't get yelled at for leaving it on the floor place.
Right. It's there. It's not in the hamper because it's not dirty yet. Yes, I wore it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's layers.
Well, plus,
here.
I mean, since it's hanging up, then you can kind of hit it with some Febreze, which I believe I'm not sure of the chemistry, but I'm pretty sure cleans it.
Yes, I think so.
Use like an aromatic wood,
Oh, that's what we need. We need like a little smoking bin on the bottom of it where you can smoke your clothes with oak.
There you go.
Or essential oils, probably. That you can just kind of have in there, so that you can have your chi re-energized just by putting on the clothes that you So maybe I will have to have it propped as both like a sport coat, business office wear, and then also a John Doyle sweatshirt.
Yeah. Blue collar. Yep.
I think this all works.
On it.
Yep.
I
like it. Probably one of the ShopNotes sweatshirts. So for those people who want to participate, you can check out woodsmith.com/store and check out the swag that we have going on there.
Now, speaking of which, I wore my ShopNotes Podcast t-shirt to the airport. Nobody recognized me. Come on.
That's the problem with radio. I will say the funny part is that my kids, in school, they periodically go through the career day or career week kind of things. And my son was experiencing that. And so I just, do you actually know what I do? And he says, yeah, you're a YouTuber.
Yes.
That's how he sees
basically.
me.
You're just a content creator out here.
Yep.
Social media.
And I've had that. People, I've had it both ways where somebody will recognize me from being on the TV show and talk about TV show stuff. And other people will be, hey, you're that guy on YouTube. And it's like, wow, we're two totally different audiences.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, that was a joke about not being recognized.
Yeah.
Maybe
on the way back.
Flying through Atlanta on the way back.
When customs is going through your fish and flour bags, they'll like, oh my gosh, I think that's the guy from Woodsmith getting arrested.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or Pop Wood.
Just make sure you have one of your mugs with you.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, grease the palm a little bit.
Yep.
All right, this episode's been brought to you by Shaper Tools. You might know them as the makers of that Shaper Origin. It's that handheld router-looking thing that's connected to a CNC. Lets you add digital precision to your woodworking. You can do all kinds of stuff like hardware installation, cabinetry construction, joinery. All of that you can do with speed and precision. They have a really cool offer now where you can try it in your shop for 30 days risk-free. If you'd like to see what all the fuss is about, check them out at shapertools.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, to the ShopNotes Podcast. As always, I'd love it if you could rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us to get out to more and more folk and be able to share the conversation and the joys and challenges of woodworking. Otherwise, we'll see you again next week, everybody. Bye.